Our guest is Bob Turner. He is the Republican candidate in the special election for the congressional seat in the 9th Congressional District on September 13th. We're talking about necessary courage and budget cuts to bring this deficit in line, to reduce the deficit. This could locally impact, any cuts impact Peninsula Hospital in Far Rockaway. The state has given it an extension to come up with a plan and preserve 1,000 jobs out there, and also a very important medical facility for the people who live in that area. What would you do to help facilities such as Peninsula Hospital?
One of the biggest problems that Peninsula Hospital has right now is the burden of non-funded mandates on its emergency facilities. There's a great number of people on that end of the Rockaway Peninsula that depend on this as a clinic. The hospital gets some payment from Medicaid. These payments have been cut substantially. There's a 30% cut coming up shortly. This is built into the hospital's budget. Medicare, the Obamacare, has transferred $500 billion over the next 10 years out of Medicare into Obamacare. The hospital's costs have risen while their reimbursements have been reduced and doctors' payments have been reduced. So a lot of government action is putting enormous squeeze on that hospital. It is really essential where we are because it's a peninsula, and it's Peninsula Hospital. Getting on and off the peninsula is time-consuming, particularly for cardiac and stroke patients, which this hospital does so well. So it is really important we pull this together. It is a city responsibility, it is a state responsibility, and a lot of the problems are caused by federal non-funding. So the federal government is going to have to figure out what they can do to salvage this situation. And what's happening here is happening in a lot of other hospitals throughout the country.
Now, you understand, if you do win this special election, you would only serve 1 year. That's the unexpired term of Anthony Weiner, and then you would you run for a full term?
My intent would be to run in 12. Somewhere, the people will be represented. There'll be a redistricting, perhaps. The numbers may change, but representation will still be there. And
the district is one of those that is possible. It is possible it would be eliminated under the redistricting.
Well, there'll be a 9th. It depends where it will shift, and where I am could have a different number. But and maybe I would run against Mr. Crowley or Mr. Ackerman or Mr. Meeks or.
So you're in it for the long haul.
I'm in it. Yeah.
Let me shift for a moment. Let's talk about international. Let's talk about Israel, because both you and your opponent, Mr. Weprin, are staunch supporters of Israel. Mr. Weprin says that he can communicate better with the president about it. You've been a mighty big critic of the president's treatment of Israel. Where do you stand on this issue?
I'm certainly a strong supporter of Israel. I am very critical of the president. Recently, the 67 border episode is absurd. His handling of Netanyahu is a travesty.
Some have suggested he's thrown Israel under the bus. Would you use that phrase?
There is still a good level of cooperation militarily and in the intelligence community. Diplomatically, this has been a nightmare. And this president and this administration needs a comeuppance. I think a Republican win here, and particularly in an area so heavily Jewish, he would have to say, I cannot take this vote for granted. But it's not only the president. I think every Democratic senator and congressman would say, we better take heed. Our own jobs are in jeopardy if we continue following these lines that the president is taking us down. So I think it is a very important message that can.
Now, that is the message that former Mayor Ed Koch said he hoped a victory by you would deliver to the president, and that is why he endorsed you. We have about 45 seconds left, Mr. Turner. Why don't you just look at our viewers right in that camera and just tell them why they should go for you on September 13th?
Well, I think this is a very important election. jobs, the economy, the whole direction of the country. Have you been taken advantage of? Are you taken for granted? I think it's time to stand up and say, I'm looking for something new, something different, and something real. This businessman has a practical mentality. That's what I hope to bring to Washington. I hope you agree.
And any particular strategy you're going to employ in the final 3 weeks of this campaign?
Oh, I shake a lot of hands and meet a lot of people and give them my rationale, just as I did now, and it's simple, old-fashioned politics, I guess.
All the things politicians usually do in a campaign. Well, Bob Turner, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Good luck to you. That'll do it for our program for this week. If you have any comments or wish to see this broadcast again, log on to our website at pix11.com/newscloseup. I'm Marvin Scott. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone.